Hi, I'm Dr. Richard Yang. Welcome to our seminar today on inductive studies on prophecies. We will be using Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14, the famous virgin birth, as an example of how we would conduct studies of this kind, both in the New Testament as well as the Old Testament. Now, inductive is really just a technical term, which is a common approach to any kind of studies. It means you draw a principle or make a conclusion only after you study the data. The conclusion should be based on the data. It should not be the other way around, that you make up your mind what things should be and then create data out of your own self. So there are 3 steps involved, and perhaps many of you are aware of that. The first one is to observe, the second one is to interpret, the third one is to apply. Observe is very simple. You read what the text actually says. Now, sometimes you also want to pay attention to what the text did not say, because a lot of people want to add material to kind of fill in the blanks for the text. That is not fair. You need to know what the text said. It is very simple. If the government sends you a letter, the first thing is you read what the letter says before you decide whether you like it or not. And only after you know what it says, then you make a conclusion. You should not mix up your own emotions in there first, all right? So, observation simply means what did he say, or what did the author say. The second step is interpretation. Interpretation is not what it means to you. Interpretation is what the author intends to send to the audience. And usually when a person talks, whether he is in the 1st century AD or 700 BC, he has an audience, and that is not you. You were not born yet, nor me. So the primary audience is what we need to know the message for, and what did he want his audience to understand. Only after that we will say, well, if we were to receive the message today, what would it mean to us today? So application is, what does it mean to us today? In other words, you find the equal sign, what is common in his situation or his audience situation, and what is similar to our situation, and therefore you apply it. Therefore, after you look at the data, then you will conclude the principle that applies today is such and such and such, and it should be based on what the author has said. So it's very simple: observation, interpretation, and application. What did it say? What does it mean to his audience? And then what does it mean to us today? Now, to quote Isaiah chapter 7, to study the verse 14, we need to cover chapter 7, a little bit of chapter 8, because I would encourage that you will read the whole chapter 7 and chapter 8. Now, if after this lecture you say, oh my goodness, I completely missed these points, or I'm still not clear yet, then I have reached my goal. My goal is to ask you, to stimulate you, to encourage you to actually read the Bible. I'm just the teacher. I'm just helping. I'm just, the guide, pointing you to the right direction. And if you find out that there are things that you cannot remember from the Bible, or you were taught a different idea, it's better to check the Bible, because it's not what I say, it's not what your Sunday school teacher told you a long time ago. It's what the Bible actually said. So, observation includes very simple things: who, what, where, when, how, and why. Answer those questions first. Okay? So, step number 1, you read the text. The text said, when it came about in the days of Ahaz, okay, the son of this guy, the son of this guy, the son of this guy. These are all kings of Judah, which is the southern kingdom. Remember, it was a divided situation. There are only 2 tribes in the southern kingdom, Judah and Benjamin, and the others are the 10 tribes up north. So we are talking about in the days of Ahaz, okay? And there are 2 kings, one from the northern kingdom, one from Syria, not even part of the 12 tribes. And the 2 northern kingdoms gathered together to attack Jerusalem, the capital of the southern kingdom. read on, that Rezin, the king of Aram, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, is king of Israel. So they tell you that the second guy is the king of Israel. Now I know these names are very difficult to pronounce, so I make it very simple. One is called Rezin, the other is pecan, very good fruits and material ingredients to make Christmas cakes. So Rezin and pecan. Now pecan is the king of Israel, and they went to Jerusalem to wage war against it, but could not conquer it. So we have read only one statement, one verse. Already is telling you in the situation of a war, it is 2 against 1. Okay? Verse 2. When it was reported to the house of David, which means again the southern kingdom, saying that the Arameans have camped in Ephraim. Now, Ephraim is one of the 12 tribes belonging to the northern kingdom, and it will become clear later on you look at the map. It's right at the border of Benjamin. And so when the foreigners have camped together, the Arameans camped together with one of their own tribe, their own brotherly tribe, that means they're not leaving, okay? And the king's heart melted, and the hearts of the people shook as the trees of the forest shake with the wind. Now, again, I'm not going to read the whole chapter to you, but this is what you need to know. Right away, it's telling you one thing. It's a wartime, and things are not looking good for Ahaz, the king of the southern kingdom. Benjamin doesn't count for anymore. So when we say southern kingdom, we mainly mean Judah. And so the first one is mainly that the first attempt was made already by these joint forces to destroy the southern kingdom. And when they find out that it's not that easy to conquer, the Syrians camped around with the Ephraim so that they take their time to lay a siege, and they're not going away. And so, oh my goodness, how are we going to overcome this situation? Now, inductive method does not mean you just read it and things you don't understand, you ignore it. No, it means that you need to know something about the real history and real geography. Geography has not changed at all. Now you say, well, isn't that outside the Bible? Yeah, a lot of things are outside the Bible. The way you read the Bible, English Bible, is outside the Bible. The Bible is not written in English. So a lot of things are real, and we need to know them. So I have done the homework for you. If you look at the map here, you will find that the southern kingdom is in the pink area, Judah, with the capital, Jerusalem, near its northern border. The area in the blue and the little blue greenish are the two enemies. Now you can see the 10 kingdom, the 10 tribes are much bigger, led by Ephraim, and with its capital Samaria. And the Syrians, they are foreigners, okay, and with the capital Damascus. And you can see right away, they control more population, more people, more land, more resources, and they're aimed at destroying Jerusalem. So why do we need those things? Because Isaiah, the prophet who's going to make this prophecy, proclaim this prophecy to Ahaz, he actually lived there. So when you read all these things, you need to know how he feels. And it's not how you feel, because you live today in the 21st century. He lived in a very difficult situation. There's warfare all the time. If there's not enough to eat, people starve. If there's enough to eat, they have more kids than they know what to do, and they want to conquer the neighbor to take away the goods. And that's just all the time. Now, I quoted here that Judah, at that time, it was 722 BC. Why do I say that? Because there are two dates that all Christians should know. One is 722 BC. That is the time when the northern kingdom was destroyed by another very cruel kingdom called the Assyrians. Assyrians are not the same as Syrians. Assyrians are further north. Syrians is between the Northern Kingdom and Assyria. Assyria is one of those most cruel civilizations. They will come and destroy people, and even their king servants and the lords get killed all the time. It's almost like Saddam Hussein. You look at him wrong, or he doesn't like you, you get shot. Of course, they don't get shot. They just put a spike from you and put you out there for the birds to pick on the dead body. So eventually, the Northern Kingdom, well, actually very soon after this is the context. When the Syrians were grouping together with the Ephraimites, the Ephraimites, Northern Kingdom, to attack the south, they were not watching. Assyria were assembling to conquer them, and Assyria succeeded in 722. So know that. The other date we need to know is 605. In California, there's a freeway 605 connecting Long Beach to the north, and it's very famous 605, so we can easily remember that. What is 605? 605 is when the Southern Kingdom is destroyed. So captured by the Babylonians, and then they move the Babylonians, and then later on the Persians take over the Babylonians and allow the Jews to come back. I say this because it's all related to the prophecy that we are going to study. And I say these things because most of the people, when I say Isaiah 7:14, they only focus on one thing, the virgin birth. And we'll find out that what Isaiah said to the king, what God told Isaiah, is not what you hear. When we do the study, you will find out that this is fascinating. Even though the conclusion is correct, but the route we take there is actually a very exciting one. So, verse 1 and verse 2 tell you there are two enemies united together to try to take over the Southern Kingdom. And all the people in the Southern Kingdom, including the king, is frightened and melting away their hearts. Okay? So, when that happened, the Lord told the prophet Isaiah, go to the king and tell him to name any sign, okay, that I will be with him, that I will take over the situation. Don't fuss about it. And of course, the king played this passive aggressive. No, I will not do this. I will not tempt the Lord. Do whatever you want to do. Remember, it's God himself talking to the king. And the king said, no. And it's done in the open, okay? People wonder, why did Isaiah record this in the upper basin, and then there's a conduit leading to this field? Because it's done in the open so that nobody can misunderstand or say it did not happen. So, God said, okay. In that case, if you wouldn't be so passive-aggressive, I will give you a sign. Now, of course, today we only have 1 hour, and so we are going to study the sign. So if you read chapter 7, verse 14, it says very clearly, therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. What is the sign? Behold, a virgin will be with child and bear a son, and she shall call his name Emmanuel. He will eat curds and honey. At the time he knows enough to refuse evil and choose good. For before the boy will know enough to refuse evil and choose good, the land of the two kings that you dread will be forsaken. Now, if you're serving and ask 10 Christians, read this and ask what is the sign, I'm quite sure 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 will say, oh, the sign is a virgin birth. Why? Because every Christmas, people read Matthew and say, Jesus' birth is a virgin birth. Mary is still a virgin when she delivered Jesus. But we're not talking about Matthew. We're talking about Isaiah. What exactly did God tell King Ahaz is a sign? Well, people stretch their heads out. Behold, he said, behold, a virgin shall be with child. That is the sign. No. The whole sentence is the sign. Read what it said. It said a virgin shall be with child and bear a son. Okay, that takes a little bit of time. A virgin in the original, I may as well tell you now, which we can go back later on. And why would you even ask this question? But I'll tell you right away. The original word is amat, which can mean a young woman, a young girl, rarely is ever used to mean a virgin. And then you say, why did they translate virgin? Fine. That's why we have this study today. So it says, behold, a person who is not married, still a virgin, will be married and have child. He said, oh, no, oh my goodness, it did not say that. I know. But in the original context, it could very well carry that because the word virgin is translated in English as virgin, but in the original it's just a maid. Will be with child, a bear son, and, well, she will call him Emmanuel. What will happen to this kid? That's all a sign. The sentence is not finished. The Lord has not finished. Okay? So if your boss come and tell you, we have assignment today. Okay, John, and John say, salute, and I'm gone. Well, I have not finished. Well, I thought you called my name. No. Having a name is only the first part of the instruction. The kid will eat curds and honey at the time he knows enough to refuse evil and choose good. The first question is that a good thing? He will eat curd and honey. Well, number one, he is not depending on milk. There's enough cows around, make enough milk that they curd it just like cottage cheese. So let me ask you, if there's so much milk flowing and so much honey flowing that they can have a honey, of course it's a sweet thing that you don't cultivate, you go and collect it. It's not easy at all. He will be eating, remember there will be extra, there will be abundance, there will be surplus. At that time, he knows enough to refuse evil and choose good. Well, that means he is 4 or 5 years old at least. But by the time he grows to that time, he will eat well. Verse 16, why? For before. Now, it's very important when somebody tells you the reason that you listen. You may or may not agree that's a reason. You can call it a spin, you can call it a lie, you can call it whatever. But listen, that is the reason the person gives. What is the reason here? Verse 16 said what? Because before the boy will know enough to refuse evil and choose good. You know, there are 2 stages. One is, you call him Emmanuel and he will be able to do well because he has enough to eat. Why would he be able to eat so well? Before he would eat so well, before he know to refuse evil and choose good, what? The land of the 2 kings you dread will be forsaken. They will be gone. They will be taken. Nobody will be living there. Okay? So what is the sign? Now, again, let's calm down. The virgin having a child and bearing a son is not the sign. It's only saying that a young girl will have child. You can say married or not married. It's not the important thing. I think a lot of people are worried that, oh my goodness, how can these things happen? Okay, so a young maiden will get married and then have children, and then that child will be a son. Well, that's only the first part, because without that, the other thing would not happen in accordance to the sign. So what is the sign? You look at it carefully. The sign is that in a short time, maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years, the 2 kings that you are so afraid of, Ahaz, you're so afraid of them, your whole citizenship is afraid, they will be gone. So what's the sign? It's the whole sign. It's the whole thing that a young girl will bear a child, and before the child grows up to 3 or 4 years old, those kings will be gone. So it's not just the virgin birth, but that the child has this name and will be able to enjoy these things as he grows up. So it's very important for us to read the text as it said before we draw a conclusion. Now, it is not what you understand and not what I understand, what the seminarians tell you, what your Sunday school teacher tells you, because a lot of times people don't understand, they pass on what they heard, and it's a group dynamics. It's a group mentality. It's everybody says the same thing, nobody dares to raise a hand and sir, I don't think so. You will be facing a lot of trouble if you do that. So it's not what you think, it's not what I think, then what are we supposed to think? It's what Isaiah understands it to mean, because Isaiah has to tell Ahaz. So, I know every Christmas we'll be told again is the virgin birth. Yes, it means Jesus' birth, okay? but is that Isaiah's understanding? Okay? Now, if the prophecy is about in the future, there will be a person called Jesus, and his birth is delivered by a virgin called Mary. Well, that happened in about 5 BC. Not 0 BC, because King Herod the Great was dead. We all know that in about 4 BC. So Jesus Christ was born at least sometime before his death. So the destruction of the two kings, well, the prophecy said will happen within 3 or 4 years after this child was born. If this child is talking about Jesus Christ, then the two kings will have to live about 700 plus years until Jesus is born. Well, it's not true, because those two kings are wiped out truly within a few years of this prophecy that Isaiah talked to King Ahaz. And we all know that it's happened in 722 BC. So, does that mean that there was another virgin birth during the time that we did not know about? And everybody say, yeah, you have to say that, because if that's the case, well, except the problem is nobody recorded that, nobody said anything about that. Isaiah certainly did not say anything about that. Is that his understanding, that it is a virgin birth, or is it a maid who was a virgin, got married, have a child, and then before the child gets to 3 years old, these two kings are destroyed? The emphasis is how quickly those two kings will be destroyed, not that it is virgin birth. Okay? So the emphasis is not on virgin. Why? Because the original words, if you don't believe me, find the concordance. I love that the concordance will tell you, you just go, and in this case, because your English Bible translated that Virgin Alma into virgin, you look under the concordance under virgin, and you find out that it mostly means girl, a maid, a maiden, maidens, and only one time a virgin, because the translators in their wonderful wisdom said, well, in order to be consistent with the New Testament, we have to translate this as virgin, because this is a prophecy about the virgin. Now, I take a different step. If you find a text from the 1st century, very pious Christians said the earth is flat. We all know the earth is not flat. Do you have to change this writing so that, we're so embarrassed a Christian in the 1st century would make a mistake like that? He probably means the earth is flat sometimes. Or he means the earth is flat locally. It's not necessary, because the guy at that time reflect what he said. So you can say scientifically, by now we all know the earth is not flat, but like a big ball. And so what he means probably, as far as I can see, is flat. You can add all those, but there's no need to change it. Okay, that's beside the point. Since I'm not an expert in translating the Bible, and the great majority say, in Matthew is that virgin, therefore Isaiah, when it comes out of his word, it means virgin. I doubt that. Why? Because of his action. What did Isaiah's action? If you don't know what the guy is saying, you look at his facial expression, you look at what he did, it will show you how he understood the prophecy. Okay? In chapter 8, verse 1, and continue the story, after a whole lot of other things. Okay, read all those things. But for this seminar, I just pick out the most important part for you. Chapter 8, verse 1, what did he say? Then the Lord said to me, take for yourself a large tablet and write on it in ordinary words. Swift is the body, swift is the prey. Now, I know many of us today will shake their heads, and why do I have to study this thing? Why is it? Well, there's no question about it. If you want to make a proclamation, just like even in communist China, 大字报, okay? There's a big piece of paper, not a small piece. You write your protest or your comments there. Whether you get into trouble or not, it's a different story. But you want the whole world to know. Same thing here. Take for yourself, take a large tablet and write it in what? Ordinary letters. Don't make it fancy word, nobody know what you're talking about. That means what? This is for everybody to know. What is the message? Swift is the pudding. That means The body, of course, we don't like that. If you go and conquer somebody else's land, you are not supposed to take away the goods because they will starve. Well, and at that stage and time, the whole idea is to starve your enemy, kill them. They even put salt. The Assyrians put salt on the land so that nobody will grow there. Why? Because they capture your material, all your goods. They kill all that they can. They don't want one left behind that will grow up and organize somebody to kill them. So they want they scorch earth more than scorch earth. They make sure the land will not grow anything again. But at that time, that's not the case. When you win, you take away all that belong to the other party. So what is the Lord telling Isaiah to do? Tell everybody the destruction of these two kings will be fast. Now, of course, it did not say the destruction of these two kings. But in the context of these things, it is the two kings. And of course, you can say, well, the same principle applies to the southern kingdom when they are destroyed. They will be, the same principle applies today. When somebody is bombed out, they got bombed out real fast. No, the context is there's nobody making babies yet. And so the Lord said to, I said, all right, I'm tired of waiting. Make a public announcement in big letters and say the booty will be taken fast and the prey will be captured in no time. Hurry up. What's the hold up? What's the waiting? Okay? And you say, okay. Dr. Yan, how do you know that? How do you know that? It's because I read the Bible. Read, if you don't know what it's saying, read the next verse. Verse 2 of chapter 8. What is the first word? So. When the author tells you the reason for his action. So, therefore, after that, I do this immediately. What that tells you, the previous verse is the reason why he's doing the second part. Okay, so what did he do? So approach a prophetess, and she conceived and gave birth to a son. You say, my goodness, what's happening? Let me ask you again. If your family is starving, if the children that you have is already about to die of starvation, are you going to make a new baby? I mean, it will be endangering your wife. So, given the situation is so hectic, the poor prophet is waiting, and no maiden is getting married. And no young married woman is getting pregnant. What did he do? The Lord said, hurry up. Okay, so he said, I approached the prophetess. Now, if you read some commentary, you will say, the prophetess is not some other woman with the ability to make prophecy. She is his wife. Well, she's called prophetess because he is a prophet. Now, we're not going to discuss that. Just because you are the president doesn't make your wife the second president. She is called the first lady, maybe, but she is not a president, a female president. Anyway, a lot of people are worried that, oh my goodness, the prophet would do something like this. No. He is approaching his own wife. Okay? Well, if it's his wife, she is not a virgin. Well, I don't care how long have they been married. Even if they were on the honeymoon, she is not a virgin. Anyway, so I approached the prophetess, and she conceived and gave birth to a child, to a son. Isaiah is telling you, he approached the prophetess, as a result she conceived. This is not a virgin birth. Then the Lord said to me, name him what? Name him this difficult name to pronounce. Mahi-Shalal Hashbaz. What does it mean? Well, it means exactly what was said in the common language. Swift is the body, speedy is the prey. Now, I hope you never call your own child that way, because everybody says, what a rotten name. But to make things real, at that time, they sometimes name their kid these names. I'm sure if your parents are superstitious, they may name you, make $1 million in one day. So that, they hope that it will happen. No, it will not. Everybody laughing at you, you know, 黃金萬兩, whatever. But they do that. So name him because why? Why did before? Because before this boy knows how to crank my father or my mother, same idea. Before this even lower threshold, don't have to wait for him to know good and bad. Don't have to wait for him to be able to eat this or that. He just have to say Papa, Mama. Maybe 2 years old. Okay, a 2-year-old would know enough to say Papa, Mama. The well of Damascus, the Syrian will be gone. The spoil of Samaria will be carried away before the king of Assyria. So the prophecy here, we said very clearly that the Assyrian king will be responsible for killing these 2 other kings. And so this is part of the prophecy. It tells you the first part of the prophecy is that call him Emmanuel, and which means God will protect his own, God will be with you, and these things will be fine. Nobody responded, and so this is the second part, a follow-on of the prophecy. So this is part of the prophecy. So how did Isaiah understand the first part? A virgin shall conceive and bear a child. He's not waiting for a virgin to deliver a virgin birth. He's not waiting for anything. He's going to his wife, if you want to, or another woman called the prophetess, and make a baby. And God said, fine, name him Part B. And you say, why is Dr. Yan calling him Part B? Well, because there is a Part A. You may say, Dr. Yan, I thought there's only one prophecy. Yeah, but there's one prophecy, a son called Emmanuel, and there's a Part B or Part 2 to it. And even Part 2 has actually 2 parts. You just have to read it, okay? Are you sure these are talking about the same son? Yes, because there's no other son, okay? The first one is really having 2 parts, and the 2 parts of which one is called Buddhi. Now let me explain that. The reason is very simple. I grew up in the Chinese church. Most of the pastors, Sunday school teachers, again, I say this in a positive way because they love the Lord. They want to tell you the truth. But we are all under a certain cultural influence that we like to talk about the kindness of God, how good will take care of you. And when they read the word Emmanuel, means God is with us, they always emphasize one thing. That means regardless how you are, God will take care of you. Oh, if you don't have money, oh, God will be with you, then you don't need money. If you're sad, remember God will be there with you, cheer up. Now, pardon me, if some preachers do not say that, they have a different story, it's good. I haven't heard from any of them yet, okay? So, I understand this thing. So, whenever the term Emmanuel is preached, they only say one aspect. Well, the word Emmanuel is used only twice in the Old Testament, and only in Isaiah. And obviously it's over here. 7:14 is one of them. So if you read it, you should read Isaiah chapter 7 and 8 to see how much of this is a blessing that God will take care of you regardless. Yes, God will take care of you regardless. But you have to do your part, okay? And I give the example all the time. If the boss is announcing that he's going to be with you all week, I wonder how many will say, oh, that's wonderful. He's going to come and help me do my job. No, wake up. Most likely he's going to check on you how you are doing your job, okay? So the same idea. I understand. People have their messages of comfort and joy, but we are reading Isaiah right now, okay? So what happened is this. God actually told Ahaz, the southern king, name any sign to show that God will be with Judah, to show that God cares, that so God will override these situations. What did Ahaz do? He refused, okay? So the Lord will bring on you, chapter 7, verse 7, the Lord is mad. The Lord said, oh, God is mad. Yeah, if you look at it carefully, the Lord will bring on you, personally, on your people, and your father's house, such days as never come since the day that Ephraim separated from Judah, the day of the king of Assyria. God will eventually allow the influence of Assyrian, the same calamity to permeate south and weaken you to the point where somebody will come and take care of you, like the Babylonians, eventually happened in 605 BC. So God is with us can mean good or bad. It depends on what? Depends on your response to him. Ahaz responded negatively. God spoke to him directly. The guy said, yeah, wave him away. Well, you wave God away, God is going to wave you away. Let you shake in the wind. Now, you say, Dr. Yan, come on, what does that have to do with all you're saying that the prophecy has to do with one child called Emmanuel? And now, the prophet's son is actually called Buddy. That's called Buddy. Well, if you read Isaiah chapter 7, verse 3, we finished verse 1 and 2. We haven't had the time to go to it. You'll find out that Isaiah already have a son. He already have one son. That is part 2, 2a. Of course, for this lecture, I have to organize this way so that it makes sense to you. Otherwise, you'll be falling asleep by the time I finish reading chapter 7. Okay? Read chapter 7 yourself. Isaiah already have a son. The first son is called what? The first son is called Shia Zahab, which means what? A remnant shall return. And that's a good thing. Because no matter what people do to you, you will have enough strength to pick up and stand up again. So if there's a run on the bank, everybody takes away money, we still have a little bit of money, or your money, lock up in the bank, safe. Oh, that's a good thing, okay? So a remnant shall return is a very important thing. And when you look at that, you will find out that remnant was there when Isaiah met Ahaz at the end of the conduit. Now, at the end of the conduit means it's an open ground. God wants everybody to hear this announcement, and he is bringing his son. Well, what does that mean? That means even before this calamity is happening to the southern kingdom, God has already made arrangement, and his first is called blessing. He is actually bringing blessing to the meaning. Except the king doesn't accept it as a blessing and says, we don't want to hear from your God. Even God himself talking to me, so what are you going to do for me, huh, God? That kind of attitude. Now, you understand, God is already promised him, no matter how bad things are, there will be a remnant. It's true, later on. Assyrian did not take over the southern kingdom. Babylonian took over the kingdom. But the Babylonians were captured by the Persians, which we all should understand. The Persians sent the remnant back to rebuild Jerusalem. And that's the rest of the Old Testament telling you God is in control. God has not forsaken his own people. And the Jews were called Jews because they were in Judah, and in the captivity they were called Jews. And that's the term Jew comes. And if Assyrian came all the way down to Judah at this time in 722, there would be no people called Jews anymore, including no Jews today. Okay, so this is a big deal. So what is happening this? Again, the sign, back to the sign, and then I'll complete the part A and 2. All these are intertwined together, and that's why I have to do it this way. The sign is not the virgin birth one, because the prophetess, if you think it's Isaiah's wife, already gave him a first son. She's not a virgin. Okay? And number 2, nobody in Isaiah's time claimed a virgin birth. If Isaiah means virgin birth, means that a virgin who never have sex is going to deliver a baby, he's still waiting. He has to wait until Jesus Christ came. And the 2 kings, we have to live 722 more years before we get finished. That's silly, okay? So, as far as Isaiah is concerned, a young lady is to deliver a baby called Emmanuel. That never happened. because there's nobody. So he has to do something himself. He has to bring about a second son. The second son is called Buddhi. So combine the two. God already prepared a blessing for the king. The king rejected that. So, okay, in that case, it will still happen. The Buddhi will happen, that your enemies will be removed. And you too will suffer calamity. So this is what Emmanuel really means. It's a blessing as well as punishment. Sure, it doesn't happen right away in the southern kingdom. It needs a little bit of time, and right away, right now, the immediate thing is to take care of the Buddhi, which is the northern king and the Syrian king, and it happened. So Isaiah had the second son called destruction will come fast. And combined with the first one, this is what it means. Emmanuel means I will be with you to bring blessing unless you want destruction. And even now the destruction is mainly on the enemy, but you will have the same destruction which happened in 605 BC. If you continue to have this attitude, and if your descendants continue to have this attitude to what I want to do for you. All right. So then people say, all right. What then is the sign for Ahaz? What is the whole thing? Let me summarize again. The sign is that the destruction of the king, of the northern king and the Syrian king, is itself the sign that God is with the southern kingdom, not the other way around. The virgin birth is not a sign. The virgin birth, number one, is not a virgin birth. It's a young lady giving birth. There are so many young ladies that can give birth. But that doesn't mean anything to the northern king's, the invaders' destruction. You can have a baby here, they can die of their own. No. It's the reverse. It's actually the invaders' destruction, proving that God is with them, protecting his own. So it's a very important thing. So the sign is this: the rapid destruction of the two kings before Isaiah's child can be 3 or 4 years old. You have to say, Papa, Mama, it's a proof that God is with Judah, which is true. Okay? And let me emphasize again. You can do history, study this again. The Assyrians destroyed Syria and Israel, the northern kingdom. The fact that they did not continue to march, they are already at the border. All they need to do is march a little bit more and they take over Jerusalem. There will be no southern kingdom left over for the Babylonians to take over. And of course, the Babylonians eventually conquered the Assyrians and they captured Daniel, and as economic hostages, they treat them nice so that the parents would pay money to the Babylonians, and they cultivate them so that in the future they will work on behalf of the Babylonians. And so as a result, there's a remnant left behind. Not only that, the Persians took over the Babylonians, conquered the Babylonians in basically one night, and that's the writing on the wall. And the king learned a lesson. These guys were using the cups and the vessels from the temple from the Jewish people, and that's why God allowed them to be slaughtered by my general. We are not going to offend the same God, so you take all these things and bring them back to Jerusalem. Now, it's a long history, but that really relates to the whole thing that God protected the southern kingdom from the further invasion from the Assyrians. Stop at the border so that there's a continuation nurturing of somebody that can continue the lineage until you read Matthew chapter 1, until Joseph found Mary and until Mary is ready to deliver the Messiah, Jesus the Christ. Therefore, the sign is this, that God will intervene to protect his son so that the Messiah will come in due time. So Ahaz is very simple, that the destruction of the invader is a sign that God is with his kingdom. Now, having said all that, and you say, but aren't you forgetting something? Every Christmas, we're told that the account in Matthew saying that Jesus' birth is a virgin birth. I know, and that's why I'm coming to this part now. Now, the prophecy of 725, I say 725 because it's about 3 years before 722. It was fulfilled as far as Isaiah is concerned. Why? Because he had a son, a second son. And before the son grew up to say Papa Mama, the invaders were demolished. So isn't that a prophecy? Yeah, that's a prophecy. So don't get caught up with all the virgin birth or not, because in the original text, except the Bible translated to it, nobody would use the word to say virgin, and the events around it is not virgin. Nobody in human history except Jesus Christ's case would even remotely believe that a virgin can have a child. And so it's not even related to how the invaders were defeated. But the way it's defeated is the proof that of Emmanuel. It's the other way around. But anyway, the prophecy was fulfilled as far as Isaiah is concerned. So prophecy fulfilled, okay? Now, however, the issue of a remnant shall return is not settled. Because if you look at it, what remnant is going to return? The second part is saying that the enemies would be defeated and the booty would be taken away very fast. But what remnant will return? Well, it will not return until later on, as we know, after Daniel and after all that. Okay, after 605 and 538 or something like that. But if you look at it carefully, that is still not fully fulfilled, because in 1948, after Hitler killed so many Jews, enough Jews go back there, and the Americans recognized the nation Israel in 1948, and that's another remnant shall return. So, but that's beside our scope today. Satisfied to say that the prophecy of Isaiah issued. Well, then how do you know it's fulfilled again in Matthew? Well, very simple. God has not spoken for 400 years. And the Jews were longing, a remnant shall return. When shall we have this remnant and have our own kingdom under God? They waited and waited. No progress. God is quiet because God is waiting for the right timing, the right people, the right economy, the right everything, the Roman Empire with the roads and everything else to be established before the Lord Jesus Christ comes. In due time, he will come. And this guy is supposed to marry this girl called Mary, and before he has done anything, she is pregnant. Being a righteous guy, he wants to quietly put her away until the angel told him, you don't do that. Why? Well, you shall call his name Jesus, because he is going to save his people from their sins. Oh my goodness. This child, under my name, under my lineage, is going to be the Savior. And Matthew added to that. And the whole event, including Mary's pregnancy, is to fulfill Isaiah's prophecy. So the reason why Joseph would know this has to fulfill Isaiah's prophecy, and anybody reading the Bible today is connected to the Isaiah prophecy, because why? Well, the angel told him that it's to fulfill Isaiah's prophecy that they shall call his name Emmanuel. Oh my. So this child will be called Emmanuel. Then they look back and find out that, oh, maybe it's true that that word, Ama, is not, in that case, restricted to a young maiden, married or not married, but rather it's a virgin birth, because there is a forecasting in 725 BC, an event that will bring about a remnant, the arrival of the Messiah, who will save his own people. Save them not only from physical oppression, but save them from their own stupidity, from their own sin. Now, I know the people, when they use the word sin, oh, dirty thought, did you steal a banana from your friend? Did you cheat when you were in high school? No. Actually, save their people from the sins is talking about the sinfulness against God, primarily. And it's their not only attitude, but their actions. So save their people from the sins is saving them from their own self-centeredness, their stupidity. So this is a big deal. Imagine his shock that everybody's looking for deliverance, and suddenly an angel appeared to him and said, hey, your fiancé, never mind, that's the right process. It will be a virgin birth. Then looking at the whole thing makes sense. Why? Because Matthew, like any good Jew, would know his Old Testament very, very well. So before Matthew wrote the account, being a disciple of Jesus Christ, knowing all the things that he has done, would have interviewed Mary and said, wait a minute, Jesus is our Savior. Tell us about his birth. Tell us about his childhood. And Mary would have told him, most likely at that time Joseph is already dead because we don't read much about him in the New Testament. So Mary would have told it is a virgin birth. Before she has sex, had to have the other children. This is a very exceptional birth. This is earth-shaking, only one time in human history. And Matthew said, oh my goodness, that reinforced the dream that Joseph had, that it is indeed Emmanuel, that he is there to show that God is with us. And if we obey God, all the blessing will come. There will be a remnant. Without it, there will be one terrible thing. So the term Emmanuel, again, is used only twice in the Old Testament, but a whole lot in the New Testament because suddenly it becomes clear. God is interested in his creation, in human beings. God even came himself. The Word became flesh so that we would know the part that he wants us to know. Mainly his glory, which is his grace and his truth. So John would tell us all the other things, but as far as the prophecy is concerned, it's a perfect fulfillment because God would send his son to earth and it would be delivered by a virgin birth. So suddenly Amma takes on a new meaning, and if people want to translate it as a virgin birth, fine. But Isaiah never understood it that way. So as to facilitate consistency, so to speak. But as I say, if you leave it as a young maid, nobody will question that. Because in Isaiah, his understanding it is his wife, could be very young, or waiting for a young one that never came, and his wife gave birth to a child. But it fulfilled the prophecy. And then the Old Testament, you translate as virgin, that's perfectly okay, because there's no inconsistency. As I say, the way we express ourselves in the 21st century is different from people in the first century. And so let them express their way, and there's no contradiction. There's no need to do that. So, when Matthew goes and read Isaiah, he will find out that the further description, which is very touching, Isaiah chapter 9. I like this because if you have been in prison, if you have been depressed, if you have been wrongly accused or mistreated, you think the whole world is dark, nobody cares. You come to Jesus, and you look at what Jesus is doing, he's suddenly the musical, ta-da! Isaiah chapter 9, it said this. And Matthew chapter 4 quote this. The land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, by the way of the sea, beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. Well, Galilee is the north. That's when the Assyrians are coming down, they took over the land. And they have taken 7 since that time. Since 722, the foreigners have taken over the land. You understand that? If you live in an area, the enemy come and take over 3/4 of the land, and you don't have enough to eat, and then you got captured by somebody else, that is a miserable, miserable situation. All the people who were there, okay? The people who were sitting in darkness saw a great light. And those who were sitting in the land in the shadow of death, waiting to die, upon them a light dawned. Oh, my goodness. Who is this? It's Jesus Christ. So, Isaiah would not have known that it was talking about Jesus Christ. Isaiah, as far as concerned, Emmanuel has already arrived. It's the problem is taken care of. But God, in his wisdom, will continue the story until the arrival of the Messiah on earth. to achieve his salvation. And then we all see a great light. There's a wonderful parallel between the first and I quote the final fulfillment of Emmanuel. I'm always very careful to say final. Like any legal document, you say final, and then final, and pen final, and really final, ultimate final version 1. So I'm not going to say final. You can say it's a climatic fulfillment of Emmanuel. Why? Because in Isaiah time, Jerusalem is oppressed by a foreign enemy. It's a foreigner, the Syrian, and a brotherly thing. Ephraim is supposed to win over the 12 tribes, but they kill each other. In Jesus' time, the Jews are oppressed by the Romans as well as their own Pharisees. The Pharisees are supposed to help them, lead them, and lead them moral, but they make it impossible for anybody to find God. Second, Judah's king, their leader, refused to believe God when God openly gave him assurance that God would be with them. Okay? He refused to believe that God is with his people, will protect his people. Oh no, what can you do? And like a lot of people, oh God, if you're alive, you should have done that long ago. Well, if God had done that long ago, you would not have known that it is going to happen. So, but there are people like that, okay? And in Jesus' time, King Herod, their leader, Herod the Great, actually worked for the Romans. He is more interested in oppressing his people to squeeze the last drop, and he built cities for the Caesarea, and all the other stuff. You're being oppressed not only by the foreigners, you're oppressed by your own people, who are actually worse because they sided with the foreigners. Point number 3, destruction of the enemies is evidence that God is with us, not the other way around. Not the birth of a child is evidence that they will be defeated, because whether the child is born or not, they will be defeated in God's scheme. It's the other way around. The fact that they're defeated means that God is with us. The birth of a child is just to give the name, okay? So, in Jesus' time, destruction of the temple, Jesus said, destroy this temple in 3 days, I will raise it up. So he is talking about the destruction of something important to them, and it's a proof of God's presence, okay? And in John chapter 2, a lot of people thought Jesus cleansed the temple first time, and then later on near his death. No, John moved that to the front. John does not go chronologically. And so when Jesus said, in 3 days I will raise it up, he's talking about the resurrection. And so that all these wonderful things is God with us. The turning of the water into wine, and also the resurrection is the first and the last miracle, is a proof of God's presence with his people. But you require people with eyes to see. People with no eyes to see, or people with a bad attitude, will not be able to see the miracles and will not be able to enjoy God's presence. Point 4, Assyria. Assyria is actually a greater evil. It will destroy the 2 kings in a very short time and degrade Judah enough so that the Babylonians will come with just march through. Nebuchadnezzar will march through Jerusalem after he conquered Egypt on his way back to his kingdom and just carry away all the hostages, including Daniel. If you look at the New Testament time, General Titus, the Roman general, will soon come down and destroy the entire nation in 70 AD in no time at all. Jesus was preaching about the time was about 30 AD, and in about 40 years it's done. And no more nation until the revival of the nation of Israel in 1948. So, the ultimate purpose of prophecy is to show that God is alive and he is in control at all times. Even though the king is given up, even the people say, doomed, we are doomed, we cannot go anywhere. Even though God said, no, you are not doomed, they say, no, we are doomed. That is Isaiah's time, most of the attitude of the people. In Jesus' time, it's the same thing. The ultimate purpose of Emmanuel is to show that God is with his people. God will write history the way he wants it, and there is yet another remnant to return to Jerusalem in 1948. So, that's a wonderful time. So you may draw this as a prophecy, can have multiple fulfillment. So this is a conclusion. If you look at this, the timeline is going this way, or in your case going that way. The first fulfillment is around Isaiah time. Isaiah is talking to Ahaz in about 725 BC, and sure enough, a baby was born. Well, they were waiting for that lady to deliver a baby, and so nobody could wait, including God said, hurry up, hurry up. So it turns out to be the prophet's second son. So the baby was born in 3 years. The two kings, the Syrian king and the Ephraim king of the northern kingdom is destroyed by the Assyrians. And that's recorded in world history. So this is the immediate fulfillment of Emmanuel, God protecting his people. God is with his people, protecting his people. The pink one, if you look at here, suddenly you will think that's the end. But no. If prophecy is fulfilled only one time and no more, then it's not a very good teaching lesson, because prior to this fulfillment, everybody is waiting for it to happen. I'm still waiting. They don't change their behavior. After it's done, if there's no more fulfillment, then it's done. I missed it. It's like somebody have seen the movie, you missed it, they're not showing anymore. Oh, well, what's the lesson? You don't. Why is important is that God is telling you, when I say something, the same principle will carry on. Watch out, there will be another fulfillment. Don't get caught by surprise. So when Jesus came, nobody expecting the Messiah to come, and the Messiah came, and Mary, in her obedience, was conceived and delivered the baby, and Joseph told her, well, that's what the prophecy is about. And it goes back the same way that Isaiah understand it. To deliver the nation, God is going to send a special situation so that people will know that the Messiah is here. And in this case, Jesus was born. And so how is that fulfilled? Well, it's fulfilled because Jesus was born and he became the Savior of the world. So there is a climatic, as we say, climatic fulfillment. But don't stop that, because being post-fulfillment today, we are after the fulfillment of both things. There may be a third one. And what is the lesson for us to learn today regarding Emmanuel? The lesson is that even though those things are historical things, do not just think of them being past. God is still with us. Are we with God? Are we on his side in obedience? So, in what way is Jesus' birth the supreme fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy? Well, the Isaiah prophecy really is just talking about a young girl, whereas in Jesus' case, it's truly a virgin birth. Matthew confirmed that. Matthew talked to Mary about that, and that's it. Now, the second point is that nobody wanted to become a mother during those stressful times in Isaiah's time, whereas in Jesus' situation, Mary willingly accepted the call when even Joseph thought, it's a tough situation. How am I going to explain this? So it's very, very different. So the third point is that the prophet Isaiah actually was the father. He told you that. And the son signified the impeding destruction of the enemy. And that's about it. Whereas in Jesus' case, the conception is really of the Holy Spirit. The Bible tells us very clearly, no ifs and buts about it. So that means truly it is God coming into mankind. And that's Emmanuel, God being part of mankind and being present there. Point number 4, the destruction of the two kings is only one part of God's presence, whereas in Jesus' case, Jesus' arrival is really talking about bringing home the remnant also. Later on, we know that he also talked about other sheep. So not only the house of Israel, but the whole nation that has been scattered, and including also the Gentiles that were all over the place. So it's a much bigger fulfillment coming from Jesus' arrival. The shepherd, the prophet son in Isaiah's time, actually did nothing except being born, and he was just given the name that the body will be secured very, very fast. Just hurry up, pick up the pieces. And in Jesus' case, the Son of God not only was born, he suffered, he died on the cross, and he resurrected for all mankind. Huge difference. The delivery in Isaiah's time is from the two invading kings, whereas the delivery from Jesus' birth is from Satan's power. The effect on one hand is mainly on the tribe of Judah, that they would be able to survive. Whereas when Jesus was born, he came, and the effect is eternal and for all nations. So finally, the fulfillment of the prophecy of Isaiah really preserve the Jewish nation so that it can be ready for the eventual coming of the Messiah. The virgin birth of Jesus Christ fulfilled the promise of Emmanuel that God would become flesh and he dwelled among us. So, in conclusion, prophecy is for people who pay attention to God's work. If you're not there, or if you're there, you're not paying attention, or if you refuse to pay attention just like King Ahaz, then the prophecy is not doing you any good, okay? The fact that even the prophet, Isaiah himself, may not know the full implication of the prophecy, so that it is God who dictates the prophecy. It's not, wow, he's such a wonderful prophet that he would be able to let us worship him. No. The prophet relate the word. So a lot of times you ask, what does that mean? He will only tell you what he knows. He will not be able to go beyond what he knows. And sometimes what he says actually is more accurate in the future than during his immediate time. So, fulfillment of prophecy does not require obedience from God's people. Far from it. A lot of times the word prophecy is given simply because people are ignorant or they are in rebellion. That's why God said you have to listen. And if you don't, certain bad things will happen. So even though it's better that they obey, it's not dependent on these people. But it shows God's mercy on people. And fulfillment of prophecy shows that God is the author of history. He's not bound by history. He knows what's going to happen. He does not dictate everything, but he would make sure that all the conditions are right when this comes up. And the condition right being people who obey him. So the prophet being one of them. The prophet is willing to proclaim the prophecy even though he may or may not know everything. And in the case of Isaiah, he's waiting for somebody to pop up a baby. No, he has to do some work himself. So never mind. That's completely okay. And the fact that he has a wife doesn't mean the wife would deliver a baby. Doesn't mean the baby is a son. So all these things requires obedience on human part, but God is able to orchestrate this whole thing and a wonderful music will flow. Multiple fulfillment of prophecy means God is not finished with his work on us yet. So I wish you God bless and hope that you enjoyed this lecture and go back and read Isaiah chapter 7 and 8 and God will bless you.